Hey friends, how's it going? Imagine being stranded at sea with a killer on board and sharks circling below. Let's jump in. On the Golden Coast of Australia, two Canadian travelers, Greg and Heather, arrive at Tucker's Experience, a cage diving tour that promises close encounters with sharks. They'd stumbled across it online and decided to check it out. Not far from the dock, a local vendor named Dave, who turns out to be an old friend of Tucker, spots them and asks if they'd booked ahead. Greg and Heather admit they haven't. They just thought they'd try their luck. Moments later, Tucker himself appears. After exchanging names, he casually asks if they're a couple. Heather quickly shakes her head, explaining they're just friends staying at a hostel nearby. Their other friends had headed off to SeaWorld that morning while they were still asleep, so the two of them came here instead. Tucker pauses for a moment, then asks, "So, no one even knows you're here?" Heather narrows her eyes. "Why do you ask?" With a grin, Tucker says he just wants to make sure their wills are in order. After all, they'll be swimming with sharks. Once they're out at sea, Tucker keeps the group entertained with a story from his childhood. How he had a near-death encounter with a shark while surfing at just 7 years old. Heather asks if anyone was there to help him. Tucker says no, he spent a lot of time alone back then. Soon, he starts tossing chum into the water, drawing the predators closer. Heather's unease grows, especially after hearing about his past. Noticing this, Tucker breaks into a playful rendition of the Baby Shark song, trying to lighten the mood. It works, at least for a moment. Greg and Heather are lowered into the water inside a sturdy diving cage. At first, Heather panics, but Greg offers his hand. His calm presence steadies her, and soon she's captivated by the graceful, powerful creatures gliding all around them. Back on the boat, Heather is glowing after the dive, still caught up in the thrill of seeing sharks up close. But her joy shatters in an instant. Tucker suddenly drives a knife into Greg, then hurls his body into the water, letting the predators finish what he started. The next morning, not far from the same coastline, an American surfer named Zephyr rides the early waves, her board cutting cleanly through the golden light. Later, she stops by a small supermarket. At the checkout, she overhears a young man asking the cashier for jumper cables, only to be told they're out of stock. He turns to Zephyr, asking if she has any. She brushes him off without a word. Outside, Zephyr finishes her drink and slyly retrieves a hidden box of ice cream from inside the cup, shoplifted on her way through the store. But before she can get into her van, the same man steps in her path. He coolly threatens to tell the shopkeeper unless she gives him a ride to his car, supposedly parked 10 blocks away. With no choice, she agrees. On the drive, he introduces himself as Moses, a real estate agent. He makes small talk, asking if she prefers the window or aisle seat, noting that window seat people tend to be more reserved. Zephyr cuts him off with a blunt, "Shut up." When they arrive at a high-rise where his car is parked, Zephyr notices a surfboard in the back. He asks where she's been surfing. "Snapper mostly," she replies. The two bond over their love for the sport. Before parting, Moses admits that even if she hadn't helped him, he wouldn't have exposed her shoplifting. As he gets into his car, he plays "Lookin' Out My Back Door" by Creedence Clearwater Revival. After an awkward pause, Zephyr breaks the silence, asking if he's a fan. He nods, another small connection. That night, the two share an intimate moment in her van, parked just outside his house. Later, Moses learns about Zephyr's odd little habit. She eats 9 bread rolls every single day. Her explanation? The waves were all time, and bread rolls are cheap. Curious, Moses asks how she got into surfing. "Because there was nothing for me on land," she answers simply. At dawn, Moses heads inside to make breakfast, but when he returns, the van is gone. Zephyr is already driving to the beach. She parks by the shore and starts looking for her fin key, only to remember Moses had tossed it away. Spotting a nearby truck, she calls out that she's just looking for a spare. That's when Tucker appears behind her. He hands her a key and casually compliments her for surfing alone so early. Zephyr offers a small smile. After he drives off, she gets a message from Moses asking why she left so early. She lies, saying it was to catch the morning waves. But moments later, Tucker returns. This time, he creeps up from behind and throws a cover over her face. She struggles, kicking and twisting, but her movements slow and then stop. Tucker hauls her to his truck, drives straight to his boat, and locks her inside the cabin. A few hours later, Moses arrives at the beach, looking for Zephyr. He scans the shoreline, but there's no sign of her. When he calls her phone, the ringtone comes from inside her van. Meanwhile, Zephyr slowly regains consciousness. She's tied to a bed. Across from her, on another bed, is Heather, the same girl we saw at the beginning of the story. Pale and dazed, she leans in and quietly says, "We're on his boat. There's no way out." Zephyr shouts for help, but her voice vanishes into the endless sea. Forcing herself to stay calm, she scans the room for anything that could pick a lock. Heather, eager to help, asks what she needs. Zephyr tells her, something long and thin, like a hairpin. Her gaze then catches on a spot on the wall where a name, likely from a past captive, is scratched into the surface. After a while, Zephyr asks Heather if anyone would be looking for her. Heather quietly says no, then asks the same question back. Zephyr also answers no. Elsewhere, Moses is on his way to work when he notices Zephyr's van being hauled away on a tow truck. Suspicion hits instantly. He drives straight to the police station to file a missing person report, explaining that the van is her only home, and that disappearing like this is completely out of character. The officer hesitates but eventually agrees to register the complaint. When asked for her last name, Moses admits he doesn't know it. He's only known her for a single day. 11 hours to be exact, he adds, but it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. Back on the boat, Heather reveals her mother never approved of her taking a gap year. Her mother had her life planned, straight to law school, then settling into a house near home. Zephyr shakes her head. That sounds like your mother's plan, not yours. It's your life. Heather asks why Zephyr came to Australia. Zephyr shares that she grew up in foster care and always wanted to escape. Heather wonders if she learned lockpicking in juvie. Zephyr smirks. The only thing I learned in juvie is to sleep with one eye open and a ton of bad jokes. Trying to lighten the mood, Heather asks her to tell one. Zephyr refuses at first, then gives in. What do you call the useless piece of skin around a man's junk? Heather blinks. What? Zephyr answers. Men, and Heather bursts out laughing. Then Zephyr notices the underwire in Heather's bikini top and tells her to toss it to her. Just then, the door swings open. Tucker steps inside, offering Heather a piece of bread. She clutches her blanket tighter, hesitating. His expression hardens slightly, and he offers her water instead. She accepts reluctantly. Zephyr snaps at Tucker to bring her food too. He hands her bread and water, then sits down casually, like this is just another day, and starts talking about the scarlet king snake, a harmless species that mimics the deadly coral snake's colors to fool predators. With a chilling smile, Tucker warns Zephyr to stop pretending to be the coral snake, because in reality, he's the real one. Then he leaves the room. Zephyr tosses the bikini wire back to Heather and starts working on the lock, but she quickly realizes something is wrong. The water Tucker gave them was drugged. Moments later, he returns, spotting the wire. He smirks, saying Zephyr is a fighter and that he loves fighters. Her vision blurs and she collapses into unconsciousness. When she comes to, she's chained to a chair on the boat's deck. Tucker moves around casually, setting up a camera with a gleam in his eye. He tells her that some people think God is above, but the truth is that he's down there. Then he talks about seeing her surfing at the beach, how alive she looked. That's how I feel when I do this, he adds. He steps over to the unconscious Heather and snips off a lock of her hair. Heather wakes in a panic, struggling to breathe. Zephyr begs him to let her go, but Tucker doesn't even respond. Instead, he uses a crane mechanism to lift Heather high above the ocean. As both women scream, he remains calm, explaining that people think sharks love eating humans. But that's a myth. Sharks don't enjoy human flesh. When they attack, it's usually a case of mistaken identity. Day after day, he says, chum is tossed overboard so tourists can get their thrills. Eventually, sharks start associating boats with food. With that, Tucker lowers Heather into the water. The ocean churns, and in seconds, a shark takes her. Zephyr can only watch in helpless horror, tears streaming down her face. Back inside the cabin, she begins scratching their names into the wall, only to notice something chilling. Beneath the paint are layer upon layer of other names hidden away. Meanwhile, Tucker dances lazily to music, drink in hand. He glues Heather's hair onto a DVD cover and slides it into a cupboard filled with others. Then he pulls out a blank cassette and writes a fresh label. Zephyr. The next morning, Moses heads to Snapper Rocks, where Zephyr's van was last seen. unaware that, just down the coast, Heather's body drifts lifeless in the waves. On the shore, he spots a broken surfboard and fears Zephyr may have drowned. Out at sea, Tucker brings Zephyr food. She snaps at him to get away. He defends himself, saying sharks keep balance by removing the weak, just like he does. Zephyr spits back that sharks are more evolved than he'll ever be, calling him a coward who preys on women. Before leaving, Tucker points to a waste bucket nearby in case she needs it. The moment he leaves, Zephyr quietly snaps the handle off the bucket. That night, Tucker sits down to eat his dinner while watching disturbing footage of Heather being devoured by sharks. Later, he heads to the kitchen and prepares a syringe meant for Zephyr. But when he returns to inject her, she strikes first, using the broken bucket handle to knock him out. She quickly snatches his keys and frees herself. But just as she's about to escape, Tucker regains consciousness. He chases her down and drives the needle into her leg. The drugs start to take hold, but Zephyr pushes through the haze and stumbles into the control room, desperately trying the radio, only to find there's no signal. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she spots a party cruise ship in the distance. She forces herself outside, but Tucker is already there. Thinking fast, Zephyr hurls his beloved camera into the sea and dives in after it. But before she can swim away, Tucker drags her back onto the boat. The next morning, a police chopper and patrol boat scour the waters in search of Zephyr. Standing on the beach, Moses watches the waves and suddenly gets an idea. He pulls up the Wave Watch app, a live camera feed from different points along the coast. He rewinds to the time Zephyr disappeared, and there it is, a truck driving away from the exact spot where her van was parked. Zooming in, he spots a logo, Tucker Experience. Moses realizes this man could be the key to finding Zephyr. He searches the name online, finds the website, and calls the number. No one answers. Determined, Moses makes a decision. He's going to the place himself. Meanwhile, Tucker heads into town to pick up a new camera. On the drive back, traffic slows him down, and that's when his eyes lock on a lone female tourist. In his mind, she's already marked as his next prey. Back at the docks, Moses arrives and quietly boards Tucker's boat. From inside, he catches faint cries for help. Smashing a window, he climbs in and finds Zephyr with her hands tied. She wastes no time, urging him to grab a paperclip or skewer and call the cops. But before he can, Tucker returns. A brutal struggle erupts. For a moment, Moses gains the upper hand, until Dave storms in, mistakes him for an intruder, and knocks him out cold. As Dave hears Zephyr's voice, Tucker attacks him as well, leaving them both unconscious. With the situation under control, Tucker steers toward a deadly spot called Hangman's Shoals, planning to finish them off. When Moses comes to, he apologizes for wrecking their escape. Zephyr tells him he nearly pulled it off. Curious, he asks why she left that morning. She says she's better off alone, but Moses doesn't buy it, insisting nobody truly is. She pushes back, telling him he doesn't know her, but he says he does, reminding her she could probably win a world record for bread rolls in a single day, that she's warm, funny, and full of life. Then, softer, he adds that he suspects she hasn't had the kindness she deserves, and maybe that's why she ran. Their moment is cut short when Tucker storms back in and drugs them both. Zephyr wakes to a nightmare, Moses strapped into the suspender rig. She yells at Tucker that he's not just another tourist, warning him people will notice if he vanishes. Tucker doesn't care. He hoists Moses high above the ocean and slowly lowers him toward the water. Zephyr shouts for him to stay still. Thankfully, the sharks don't react. Frustrated, Tucker stabs Moses, letting the blood drip into the water to lure the sharks. But just as he's about to lower him in again, a lifeguard chopper appears overhead. He quickly hauls both captives back inside. Inside, Zephyr is already working on dislocating her thumb, desperate to slip free from the chains. Tucker walks in, calm and collected, telling her that she and Moses were never meant to be. Moses is soft, but she's hard as nails, just like him. He compares the two of them to sharks, creatures who thrive best alone. Then he leaves, unaware that Zephyr's next move will be even more brutal. She starts biting her own thumb, willing to injure herself just to escape. That night, Tucker preps another syringe, but when he enters the room, Zephyr's bed is empty. She slams the door behind him, locking him inside. In a panic, she runs to start the boat, but Tucker forces open the emergency hatch and kills the power. She spots a party on shore and grabs a flare gun, aiming for help. but Tucker sneaks up behind her. She spins around and fires the flare straight at him, then bolts. Injured but relentless, Tucker breaks free again. Zephyr cracks him over the head with a frying pan and makes a run for it, diving into the water. Tucker isn't done. He grabs a speedboat and chases her down, dragging her back. Soon, Moses is tied to a chair and Zephyr is suspended over the water. He throws water at her face to wake her and asks if they know why marlin are a fisherman's favorite catch. When they stay silent, he explains, "Marlins fight hard, but once the hook is in, the game's already over. For the fisherman, it's just entertainment." With that, he lowers Zephyr into the sea and starts filming. The sharks keep their distance, so Tucker dangles a baited hook to draw them in. One grabs it and swims off, jerking him forward. Zephyr grabs the line, trying to pull herself up, but Tucker startles her. She loses her grip and drops into the water. As Zephyr pushes through the water, she comes face to face with the same shark Tucker had injured earlier. She clutches her bleeding hand, locking eyes with the beast, but instead of attacking, it simply turns and glides away. She hauls herself back onto the boat, snatches up a harpoon gun, and fires, nailing Tucker and sending him splashing into the water right into the feeding frenzy. The sharks waste no time making him their next meal. The harpoon's line yanks Zephyr toward the edge, but she manages to free herself and spot the party boat she tried to signal earlier. This time, she grabs a flare and fires it into the sky, catching their attention. Racing back inside, she finds Moses pale and weak from blood loss. She shakes him, pleading for him to wake up, reminding him that he's what's waiting for her when they make it to shore. Moses slowly opens his eyes and smiles, and Zephyr can't help but let out a relieved laugh. And that's how Zephyr turned the tide, surviving the deadly waters and making it back to shore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next recap.